All right, guys. I think I forgot to hit pause recording. So, the things, I'll just cut all the beginning off before we get started. But we are in Genesis 37 tonight. So obviously we're seeing that we skipped over 36 because it was just genealogies. Not saying that it's just genealogies, like it's not important. But for the sake of this Bible study, um, we talked about it kind of last week that we were kind of, if we were going to talk about genealogies, we would like dedicate that to like maybe let's talk about one family line or one clan because it's very, very deep and it requires like a deeper level of study that I just have not been privy to for that in the moment. So we jumped over that and we're going right into like the story of Joseph. So does anybody want to read like the first 5 verses of 37?
I will if no one else wants to.
All right, thank you, Gina.
And Yaakov dwelt in the land wherein his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan. There are the generations of Yaakov. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren. And the lad was with the sons of Bilnah, and with the sons of Zilpah, his father's woman. And Joseph brought to his father their evil report. Now Yasharel loved Joseph, more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. And when his brethren saw that his father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him, and could not speak peaceably to him.
Okay, so she can stop at 4 because I want to mention something before we get into the dream. So I was reading it at first, Joseph was tending the flock with his brothers. And the first thing that kind of came to mind was this whole idea of tending the flock,
Can
being
you
a
share your
shepherd.
notes? I'm
It's,
sorry, sis.
huh?
Can you share the notes, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Um, and so it talks about him tending the flock with his brother. So I thought that was important to look at and seeing how um, we also see that tending a flock is also equal to like being a shepherd, being a teacher of the pasture, grazing, feeding the flock. So not just thinking about sheep, but thinking about us as people. Joseph and his brothers were in charge of shepherding over his father's possessions. And so we know that we are the father's possessions. We are his sheep of his flock. And so also I put Jeremiah 23 as like a reference how Yahuwah feels about when the pastors are not doing their job, when the shepherds are not feeding the flock properly. And so we're seeing this portion here that Joseph is already favored, he's already loved, and he's given this exalted position over his brothers. So Yasharel has designated Joseph, his beloved son, to not only be in partnership with tending the flock with his older brothers, but moreover, he makes him an overseer. Like he's the one that reports if they are doing what they're supposed to be doing or not. And so that is literally um it reminds me of every time Yah would send a prophet to correct, like the rest of the body hated the prophet. Even with Yahusha, when he came, the beloved, the only begotten son, comes to correct the priests, the pastors, the chiefs, the elders. They couldn't speak peaceably unto him. And so it's like they hated him. They could not speak peaceably unto Joseph, his own family, his own kin, his brothers. Like they just couldn't do it because they saw the favor. They saw that their father had given him this exalted position over them, even though he was the youngest, even though he was the last born, until Benjamin comes. But like in their eyes, it's just like, who are you to tell on us? Yeah, they saw the favor. And obviously we know that on an earthly perspective, we can understand like a father having favorites in the way that he's treating one some versus the others. But on a spiritual level, when we're looking at it from the viewpoint of this is a type for Hamashiach, and literally like the outcome was the same. Um, and so I put peaceably, so that word is shalom, which means also, it doesn't mean that they couldn't speak like nicely to him. It means they couldn't speak with soundness. They couldn't speak with tranquility or completeness. So I think that's a lot for us to even like internalize and review in our own hearts are we speaking with shalom? Are we speaking with a sound mind when we're talking to our brother and our sisters? Or are we not completely there? Are we not complete? Even if it's like unintentional, sometimes we're not completely healed yet. So we don't speak in a peaceful manner in a moment. But it's just like understanding that, like, having tranquility, soundness of mind, you have a good welfare intended for that person when you're speaking to them. Is that where your speech is coming from a well intended place? Or is it fractured? Is it not sound? Is it has your speech been perverted because you don't have the peace or the love that Yah's asking you to have when you were laying something to someone? Anybody else? Oh, Dominique said they saw the favor. They did. They saw it. They felt it. They were offended by it. And so, but that's not Joseph's concern. You know, his concern was, I'm going to do what my father called me to do. My father told me to give a report. I give a report. And so, yeah. I'll pick up at 5. So Joseph had a dream. And when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it. His brother said to him, do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us? And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he said. Then he had another dream. And he told it to his brothers. Listen, he said, I had another dream, and this time the sun and moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me. When he told his father as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, what is this dream you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you? His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. And so this part right here was really exciting to me, because we're going to get into a lot of things. We're going to get into like wisdom and sharing the things that Yah has revealed to you versus who and when you should reveal it to others. But the first part, so Joseph had this dream. He had it 2 times, which we know, like, twice is like the confirming of a thing, you know, like by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. So we get the 2, which means like, oh, this is confirmed in matter. So also for you guys to know, if Yah's showing you something, if he had this dream twice, if he had something happen, if you're having a vision or Yah's downloaded something to you 2 times, like the same, like I've had situations like this happen. I'm just like, dang, I've never had the same dream 2 times before. That's wild. So I went to scripture and I saw where this had happened before. But he's having this prophetic dream of being stood upright. So being stood upright, Joseph is getting this revelatory dream from Yahuwah telling him that I'm going to put you in an upright position. You're about to be stationed and appointed and anointed. You're about to be a deputy. You're going to be perfected for something, right? But Joseph doesn't know the totality of this dream because we prophesy in part. And so that we know that dreams come from Yahuwah. But in the ancient world, they all know that dreams come from like the divine. Either your dream comes from Yah, or they're being perverted and they're coming from the enemy. That's also something that we have to keep in mind. But at the end of the day, dreams were always taken seriously. And so for Joseph to have this dream about rising to power, and not only his brothers, but his parents also bowing down, was definitely going to give very much shock and awe. How is this the youngest in the family, saying that they're going to lord over him? It's like he jumped over the line of succession. Obviously, we know Reuben is not, first in line anymore because of his atrocity. But it went back, like Judah was supposed to be next in line. So you can imagine from all the older brothers, they're saying like, so you're going to skip over Judah, you're going to skip over Issachar and Zebulon, and you're saying that you're going to be the one that we're bowing down to? The first dream. Now, the second dream was even more like, you're trying to tell me that your father and your mother, which that would never happen, like in the natural line of things, that would never be something that would happen. But again, this is not something in the natural, this is something in the spiritual. But again, Joseph being young, being eager, not being discerning of the fact that his brothers already don't speak peaceably to him, not discerning the fact that his brothers are already have envy and jealousy in their hearts. It was going to irritate or make worse the situation that was already like brewing amongst the family. But sometimes Yahuwah gives us information about something that specifically is for us to know and to hold in our hearts. The wisdom of sharing the thing that Yah reveals to you in secret about your life is also knowing when and who to share that information with. And again, obviously, he's young. We're young. When I say young, like we're young in this walk and understanding the depths of how Yahuwah speaks to us and how he's revealing things to us. And sometimes in our excitement, we just like, oh my gosh, y'all told me this about me, and da, 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 da. He revealed this thing to me. And people are looking at you like, who are you? Like, you just got here, And so for that not to deter you, and I'm glad it didn't deter Joseph, but again, taking it in a broader perspective about like how this happens to us in our life or the people around us. Maybe you have children or you have an auntie or uncle or a dad or a mother, and they're revealing something to you and you just can't quite grasp it. That's a reality too that we have to keep in mind as Yahuwah continues to sharpen us and train us up in the way that we're supposed to go. But yeah, so if people around you are already showing their jealousy, their envy, their disdain in their heart for you, it wouldn't be really wise to tell them that the creator is showing you that they will be bowing down to you one day. It can also, and again, because we prophesy in part. And I know for me personally, coming into like all of this truth and all of this revelation, all this unlearning and relearning, one of the things that y'all really like put in my heart was to not really, I think I talked with some of you about this. It was like, yes, it's important to know who the natural branches are, but in wisdom, you don't need to lead with that. Because if you're telling people, oh, we're the chosen people, like in the coming New Jerusalem, like all the nations are going to come into us. And it's just like, what's the point of you selling that to people who already don't want to receive a word like that? And so in that sense, the wisdom of being like, hey, step back from that part, and let's focus on the other things. And we'll get to that later, because it's going to happen regardless, because it's prophetic. It's prophecy. It's going to happen. We don't always need to lead with you're going to be bowing down to us. Like that's, but in our excitement and our zeal and like, oh my gosh, I found out who I am. Da, 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 da. All these things come into play. So that was kind of like a parallel that I saw. And sometimes it does lead to like a snare for people in their own hearts because of their own pride. Not saying that Joseph had pride. We don't know Joseph's heart posture and all this. We can assume, we can speculate. But when I'm reading, I just see a 17-year-old boy who's excited about this divine revelation that Yah gave him.
In thinking, so it's 11 brothers, 11 siblings. So we always start off by saying that like, oh, they were jealous because of how dad revered him, like how he, treated him special. But in reality, like there's a huge age gap out of all of those 11. So I think more of, even if you take that out and the dad didn't do no special treatment, no nothing for being chosen, they weren't set in their own individual calling. Because, you met on, you worry about, you start to covet or be jealous or pay attention to other things when you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And I talk to my kids, like they have some of them age gap, but just individual conversations is that like if you're the older, when we say do better, or teach, or you should be helping to share or whatever the case is, but he doesn't have a safe space, Joseph, anywhere for somebody to say, oh wow, tell me more, like who's the best friend, who's the this, who's the that. But all of them essentially are worried about why they didn't get picked for something, right? When in reality, that could be a number of things. You didn't want the job, you're not good at the job, you like something else, you're busy with, and then the age group too is if Joseph is the baby, I'm thinking which one of the older brothers have their own wives by now or families or, just something. And so all of that background stuff to put into context. But at the end of the day, each one of them weren't serving or know what their call was with Yah themselves. Because that's why they tied up and distracted with, well, what's he over there doing? And how your mom would say, well, what does that have to do with you? Like what does that have to do with you? If you knew what you were supposed to be walking in or knew what your had some confidence in that, then maybe you wouldn't be tied up and distracted with a lot of those different things. Because they're so focused on why do you think you're better than us? But what was their own end of it? Like, why did they have lack of confidence to not know what their own calling was too? Because it all should have been fed together some kind of way. Everybody should have been, you know,
I was gonna say something along the same lines, sis, because I'm wondering, yes, he's the youngest at this point, but like the insecurities of the older ones,
mhm,
like you can't be happy for him for like 1 second. You
mhm.
can't like put your issues aside to listen to him for 1 minute. You know what I'm saying? So it's just the envy and the covetousness and all of that just shows through, and it's just like,
And then
dang.
I'm thinking the older ones have been walking with dad long enough too, so
Yep.
nobody's circling back to minister to say, well, ooh, maybe I think, and like me and Latanya talk about this all the time, where we are in like who's ministries or people who have helped us grow right in our giftings and where we pick those things up at. We're very intentional about trying to cultivate those things in our children right now, because where we didn't get it, or we got it from outside or something, late 30, early later, in like
Yep.
where we are right now, trying to pour into them to say, okay, like let's talk about that. Like, let's talk about your dreams, let's talk about your prayer life, let's talk about your circle of friends. And
Yes.
but none of those people are like emulating things that their dad, they've seen that relationship with Yah too. So I think like whether or not it was the special coat or whatever, they weren't postured the right way, like
right.
to be able to be chosen per se. And Joseph was innocent and pure. Like you said, he's sharing. And then the second time too, he's like, it's just so innocent. But that's why Yah picked him too, because his heart was all like hungry to know, or, whatever. But I think about the dynamic with the siblings. They got more issues amongst themselves, worried about, stuff versus where Joseph was.
Yeah, and that was sewn into them with the relationships from the moms, that whole it's all flowing down, because they were pregnant and they were dealing with all these stuffs, and all those seeds got sown into those sons and daughters, and then with their being favorites and all that kind of stuff, it's just messy. It's just really, really messy, So spiritually, um, yeah, their dad wrestled and all this kind of stuff, and he had all these experiences, and they saw stuff, but they still have hurts on the inside of them that need to be dealt with, that they haven't dealt with, and that's why they can't hear their brother, because they still have wounds that need to be healed as well. And I think that's how we are as people. We look at someone else, and we can't meet them where they are, because we're saying, woe is me, because of the wounds that we have, and not hearing the heart of the person, that's trying to share what Abba has given to them. And so that's where I think we need to be very, very careful in this walk with Abba, and sensitive to our brothers and our sisters, our aunts and our kotis, when it comes to different things. And we need to hear their heart, and that's where we have to take a step back and go to the Father and be like, okay, y'all, I'm older, this young person coming over here talking all this stuff or whatever, where is this coming from? We need to run to Abba, instead of allowing the enemy to plant seeds in us that should not have been there in the first place. However, we do have all our baggage and our luggage, and everything that we carry that's been going along with us, and we have to allow Abba to heal those things, and realize that we have things in us that need to be healed, so that we can be there and high five our brother and our sister when they get revelation of things that we don't have.
Hallelujah. All of this is so spot on. When y'all were talking, I was just like, oh my gosh, that's it. That's it right there. Um, Me and Alicia were talking earlier, or was it yesterday? We were saying how like um in order for us to really understand the revelation that Yah wants to give to us, we have to deal with the things that are hurt in our heart. Like he's going to take us back to things like, why did I react this way? Or why did I go to this thing to kind of like comfort me when I should have ran to Yah? But again, if things aren't healed in our heart, we won't properly see correctly. Um, and it is so important for us to heal, because like Latanya said, like Tara was saying, like Gina was saying, like all of these things tie in together. But at the end of the day, we won't be able to meet our brother or our sister where they are. Because if they say something and we're immediately offended, we won't ever allow the word that they're speaking to really land and plant the seed so it can be watered, so Yah can show you what it is he wants you to know for yourself. But yeah, so again, from the person that's receiving the word needs to be working on their healing. For the person that's giving the word has to work on their healing, and have the wisdom and understanding in that too. And I also want to speak on Joseph again, because like, again, Joseph really didn't really have the understanding of like the fullness of like what this dream, like the significance of this dream. He was just so excited, he didn't really have the full understanding. He also didn't seek Yahuwah about this. Again, he's young. He just going straight up, oh my gosh, I got this dream. I know it's from God. I know it's from Yahuwah, but like he didn't, like his brothers, like you said, his brothers didn't stop and be like, hey, well, let's take this in prayer and ask y'all to give you more revelation on what this looks like. What does this mean for you? What does this mean for us, for your family? Nobody stopped and be like, well, we need to inquire of Yah. You had this dream twice.
See,
Oh,
that's my
yeah.
thing of that. The leadership, but again, they're not properly aligned, because even if it's not the prophetic wisdom or revelation, like, I mean, somebody, you tell them, like, 10 is a big number, 11 is a big number. Nobody's thinking like, wow, like this is, and from the point of, daddy used to have direct visitations like that all the time, but nobody's getting and then let's say maybe one or two of them did, but they jumped with the group to just be like, you don't get to, be like this. But they weren't in season right. They weren't in right relationship, because like typically it flows through everybody. Somebody's getting bits and pieces. It's just not one. Somebody's something. And even when you don't understand, you can be like, well, I'll pray with you. I'll be in it's something. We know God is doing something. So 11 of them, and the older ones too, you're telling me that the leadership piece for me, the lack of people not standing in their position. And I think that's, you can't say that Jacob didn't, like that wasn't, if he's telling his house, this is how we serve, this is how we do, like, why were they not hearing? You can't say y'all wasn't talking to them. Like, why would they not hear? Where would we have, how much further would it have been different if people, and I'm just in a season where I'm just like, people got to do their job. You're going to have to, if you on assignment, you're going to have to be where you're supposed to be. Like, it's a lot going on out here. And if you're not growing, or you disobedient by not listening or being in tune in those type of things. But 11 brothers, and I'm thinking men, the leadership piece, the protector piece, my older brother, like he used to ride out for me. Like I tell my kids all the time, I don't understand, like, other relationships, but how they protect you and how they look after you and how they give you advice and how they, kind of want you to do good and check on you and those types of things. So 11 brothers who are not in alignment right with Yah, for their family, for
Hey, you guys, I wanted to say too that it just reminds you about the mountain of love that you have to possess in your heart. And it also is a great example of what the ratio, what we experience, 1 in every 12. Maybe out of all of your brothers and sisters and cousins, you're just the it. And what he experienced on a larger scale, we experience every day little Joseph dreams in our lives. Latanya say, my little girl, a little girl's heart, little Joseph dreams we have all day long, because half of us are not up against what Joseph was up against. And yet, it's always a mountain in our life when you're trying to minister and speak to others or whatnot about what Yah is saying. That it's hard for people to receive it. And like Tanya was saying, like with pain and things that are unhealed in your life, that takes a lot. I don't mind my baby sister coming to me and telling me what she gonna do and how she gonna lead now or whatever, right? Because you know why? Because I'm healed. She can say whatever and it's not gonna like offend me. But I can only think of like, if there's things in my heart, I'm like, wait a minute, you've been living your whole life and you've been getting all this from mom and dad and you still gonna talk about what you're gonna do over my life? I mean, that's hurt, right? So you can see where the struggles of people and humanity, if they were that close to Yah at the time, because they were the children of Israel, you know what I mean? And yet they had those type of struggles. They were selling their brother off and they were trying to kill him and murder him. And look at us, we like almost 4,000, 3,000 years later, we still have the same issues, but it just kind of goes to show that, what had entered into the world at the time of Hasatan and was still there. And we know that through some of their lives, some of us have read some of the stories about them, deep stories about them, that it wasn't until close to the end when they were about to die that they were like, oh my goodness, I made a mistake. How many of us know people like that in our lives that they live their whole life, and then when it's getting close to the end, they start to straighten up. And it's like, okay, wow, where was this the whole time? But again, all those generations, and y'all couldn't find one that was pure, which is why Yahusha was the only one that was sent, because it was none that was pure. So I mean, I think it's a great example and a great opportunity for always to continue to self-reflect, just like you said, Samaria, that hey, look, if we're not in a place to to love, or we're not healed, and vice versa, we're going to have conflict. So it's so important for us to be analyzing that, because we fall short of the glory every day. You know what I mean? And again, our little baby dreams and our fights and stuff like that, compared to what some of these people were dealing with, was on a whole nother level. So we gotta, even when we're going through these struggles, gotta just be reminded that, look, you know what? Let's posture myself. And what about my heart? What's really going on here? So
hallelujah. That goes into the next part. Like, y'all literally said everything that I had typed in the notes when it talks about where it says, and he told his father and his brother, his father rebuked him, and so like I was just like, wow, like, so the word rebuke is to rebuke, to reprove, to cry out, to restrain, or to defer from wicked efforts. So Israel is rebuking Joseph. He's literally saying like, I am deterring your efforts to try to say that we're going to bow down to you. But then it said that like, but his father observed the saying. Like later on, like he kept it to himself, but he didn't, like Taryn was saying, you should have been like, hey, hold on. He should have said it out loud. Hey, wait a minute. Let us hold on. Let us seek out this thing. Let us observe what he's saying. But he said it, but the father kept it to himself. He didn't do the leadership role of being like, hold on. Yeah, I know initially I'm like, but actually, now that I've thought about it, let us actually think about this to everybody, but not just to himself. And so I put the scripture on here where like Malachi 3:11, where Yah's literally saying that he rebukes for our benefit. But in this context of Malachi, Yah's giving a word to Malachi about how Yah's going to rebuke the other nations to save Israel. But again, Yah also rebukes us to save us. But in this sense, people can rebuke you in ignorance because they think they're doing a good thing by rebuking you. And so I put on this thing like, oftentimes in the midst of us speaking and revealing what Yah has showed us, everything that y'all are saying, delivering a word, trying to show your parents, your family, your friends, in the midst of you trying to reveal what Yah has showed you, whether it be the truth of his name, the truth of coming back to his commandments, the truth that we have been walking in error and lies, the truth that the majority of our family and friends have not really sought Yahuwah with all their heart, mind, and soul. Whatever the revealing of what Yah is speaking, it's normally received with the reaction in the flesh before it settles in the mind and in the spirit. A person's base response based on their hurt and their pain and their unhealedness, they want to rebuke you. They want to tell you that you don't know what you're talking about, and they want you to be quiet. They have no understanding because the understanding was given to you. The base response can be perverted by the jealousy in Joseph's brother's case that was already in their hearts. So, but because we don't know that later on, just like Joseph's father, Israel, that the word, the seed that you spoke sat in their heart. And now they begin to wonder, they begin to ponder, they begin to observe and pay attention to the words that you said, the truth that you revealed from Yah, and in his will, it will be watered. The difference in the father's reaction versus the son was that although both rebuked the dream, the one that loved him knew that he wasn't coming from a prideful place, while his brothers, already envious, they knew, or because their knowing was perverted, that he was coming from a place of arrogance. So when someone actually knows you because they love you versus knowing you and say, oh, I know her, you know me from a place of hurt, from a place of trauma, from a place of offense. You only know me based on how I offended you when I said a thing, but you don't actually know me because you love me. The difference of the father knowing him because he loved Joseph, he knew Joseph's heart. His brothers couldn't see Joseph's heart because of the pain and the hurt in their own hearts. And so they both have like, oh, I know. But one person's knowing is rooted in error. And so for us to have this understanding, like I called it it's called after the rejection. So after you give a word, a lot of times you're rejected. People don't want to talk to you no more. They're not hearing what you have to say, but you don't know that what you said planted a seed. And later on, no matter how long it takes, they maybe start to wonder. Maybe you put a crack in their thought process. You put a crack in the starting of the breaking of their heart. But they have to get past the offense first. And sometimes people don't get past the offense because the wall of offense is so thick. But for those who allow the seed to get past the offense, once they rebuke you and say, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus, I rebuke you, you speaking from a devil. Like after all that is done, they sit down later on that night or the next day, they're just like, that word comes back in their mind again. And they're just like, well, what does she really mean by that? And then they go to seek. So we can't never throw somebody away because of how they treated you in the midst of you revealing that word. That's what Aisha was saying. You have to have a mountain of love, because when they come back to you, can you receive them when they say like, oh my gosh, like, I know I haven't talked to you in like a year. Haven't talked to you in 6 months or 3 weeks, but I thought about what you said. You may not get an apology for them rebuking you. Who cares? Forgive it. Move on, because now you got some more work to do to help them dig on that word, prune that word, water the seed that y'all told you to tell them. But man, like y'all literally said everything that I was like when I was typing this out, the importance of that. But his father observed it in his heart. He kept it. Even though he didn't say it out loud, he didn't tell everybody in the room that like, hold on, maybe we should think, because again, like Taryn was saying, maybe like she literally what she said, maybe someone did like say, let's hold on, but they didn't, they just kept it to themselves and went along with the rest of the crowd. But when they get by themselves, they have to deal with themselves. They're not around everybody else and all the voices. And that's the work of Yah. That's the work of the Ruach HaKodesh.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking about too, the whole point of like the belief of it, because you don't like what somebody said, but if you, how grandmama say, the hit dog holler, you thinking about the messenger and why you and all these other things or whatever, but they had two options, receive it or don't receive it. So they disagree with it, but now they spent all this extra energy to try to not make it happen. I mean, because if you didn't believe it, why were you working so hard to, like, so you had to have believed it, because everybody was trying to remove him from the, like, how dare you? It really wasn't like, even if he was arrogant or prideful or he thought that, if you wasn't threatened by it, you wouldn't have expended the energy to try to remove that from the situation. And I think with Dad kind of realizing that's him going back saying, okay, y'all, you haven't revealed this to me, but I have to just watch it and see what happens next, because you do know it's something moving. It's and maybe that wasn't for him to know, to be able to intervene and manipulate in that sort of thing.
This chapter that we're reading, it hits me really close to home, because it's like I identified Samaria was the one who actually called it out, and I didn't even realize it. One day in conversation, we were having a private talk, and she says, Dominique, you experienced the Joseph effect. And it's the way she said it, it was like I was able to understand fully what that meant. And I would say like exactly what you just said in regards to the father knowing but not knowing, and it's so sad though, because in so many instances in those situations, currently, we're experiencing that at an all-time high now, and for me, what like I had to heal from was the part of, my mother knew, but she didn't know, like that. And it was a little bit too late for her to find out, when I was going through that, because I know exactly what it is to be rebuked in that, and from from somebody very close to you. And then it was wild because the way that Yah did it was literally on her deathbed. It was like that's when she knew, and it broke my heart because it was like I wish that you would have known before it got to this point. And so it's so important for us to just know and trust in Yah because we just don't know, you know? And so I just had to share that with you all, the importance of this.
Latanya was about to say something.
I was just gonna say, in our little Bible study here, as Yah's revealing these truths to us, and we're learning and unlearning and understanding and overstanding and understanding all this stuff, He is gonna hold us accountable to everything, all these revelations that we're getting, because now we're held to a higher standard because we have understanding of it. And so in our day-to-day lives, you guys, we got to be prepared to be challenged in this very word that we're receiving in this Bible study every night, every Friday night. The enemy is going to come quickly to snatch this word so that that seed is not planted, so that it won't get rooted in us, so that we won't change and do that work, that inner work that we have to do on ourselves. We have to allow this work as we're coming into this revelation and this understanding, and we're breaking this word down that, oh, yeah, okay, I can't be acting a fool the way I've been acting a fool. You let me slide before, but now that I know better, I have to do better. And you guys trust and believe that He is gonna come. He is going to come, and He's going to challenge us in this very word, even among those of us on this line. And we have to be prepared to stand, having done all to stand. And so I just want to say that, because we getting here, and it's so nice to sit here and talk about it and all this kind of stuff, and we see all these things. But when it happens in our real day-to-day life, how are we going to react then? How are we going to show up? What's gonna be our response? Are we going to look to Abba? Are we going to take a step back? Are we going to take that gut punch and be like, ooh, that hurt me? Okay, Abba, how do I handle this? Or are we going to operate out of our emotions? And that's work, you all. That is work. This lesson here is very relevant to what is going on in our day-to-day life right now. This lesson is so relevant. It is so on time in this season that we're in right now. And we just gotta continue to be praying for one another, lifting one another up, keeping each other covered in prayer, because this thing is only going to get more and more challenging, because we're seeing it. We're seeing it as we're always providing opportunities for us to minister to our family and our friends and all this kind of stuff. We have to be prepared, you all. And then we have to know that if they reject this thing, that they're not rejecting us, they're rejecting Him. And we have to continue to do the work.
Hallelujah. Thank you, sis. When I was reading this today, it was so, like you said, it was so on time. Like I didn't know how on time it was. And I'm thankful for all the lessons and the wisdom that He's been like really showing and like working us out in throughout the year. Last night, I got on my TikTok, and I haven't been on for a while. But people are still like commenting on my post about like, saying that pastors should make distinction and separations. Like you can't be in the middle. We have to make a choice. And people are still commenting on it. And when someone commented last night, they're just like, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. This man has been doing teaching and pastoring for 15 years. And my first initial response was like, it hurt. I felt like someone just stabbed me in the heart. I was like, you're rebuking me? Like you're rebuking me for quoting scripture? And I stopped, and everything in my flesh wanted to respond to her and say like, and just give her more scripture. But I stopped and I just closed my phone. It was so hard. I was like fighting against my whole body. And I was like, don't even do it. She don't know you. She don't know your heart. She don't know where you're coming from. And then I read this. And then Yah gave me the revelation about like people's initial response is going to be in flesh. They're going to rebuke you, but you don't know that later on that seed, whatever you said, is going to marry. And like that's where all this whole revelation came from. I was working through it in the room the other night, and I was just like, I'm so glad that in the wisdom that Yah has given me over these last few years was to do not respond when someone rebukes you. Just be quiet. And we're gonna get into that too, because I think I wrote it on here something about like the wisdom of just like being quiet. Yeah, somewhere in the notes I was like, there's wisdom in just like being quiet. I forgot where I put it, but it's somewhere in the notes. But yeah,
Like no response is a response.
especially after you already given the word, you don't like. What did Miss Rachel say? Like when a deaf interpreter, ASL interpreter, interprets something, you cannot go back and be like, well, let me expound upon this part. No, you just interpret what was given to you and that's it. You say what was given to you and that's it. You don't go in and give commentary. You don't go in and give extra information or extra knowledge about a certain thing unless that person actually coming to you and it's like, hey, I want to understand this word. No, but in the midst of it, people are going to rebuke and just like, well, no, well, I'm saying this because you don't got to do all that. Don't say anything. No response is a response. Let the Holy Spirit, not sometimes, a lot of times, most of the times, we are working on trusting Yah to finish the matter. We keep wanting to stick our hand back in, stick our foot back in there, or open our mouth to try to say something again. And Yah's like, I asked you to just say this one thing and move on. Let me do the rest. But sometimes we think that like, well, yeah, I want to do this for you. He's like, I already told you what I want you to do for me. Let it breathe. So.
And for me, it's not getting baited into stuff. Because even if you sitting there and you like, and I could say, and I, but some kind of way, then if you do the barter, because I feel like the enemy be wanting to bait you out, like that, like, and then you have those situations where you're right, but you continued on the wrong, you let them out of whatever, pull some extra stuff out of you. So you start off with good intentions, but then you get drugged down a path of, because why do you have to be extra right? It wasn't about being right. You do what God told you to do. You say it or, deliver the message or minister, however, and then that's just that. Because just what the teaching is tonight about all the other things, it's past hurt. It's their, some of it is their capacity to understand the moment. Like
Absolutely.
people don't, like where they're at right then. So it's a maturity thing, or whether they're closed off, healing, or it hasn't been revealed to them yet, or insecurity or something like that. So I do think, just like LaTanya is saying, we should be thinking about that, how we're being poured into and how we're training and learning right now to be seasoned enough when we're delivering that to whoever our audience is. We have to think about it that way, because before we might not have approached it that way, right? But now we can be a little bit more sensitive and big-hearted. Like Sis was saying, we definitely have to have that mountain of love, because we have to think about all the other things that we have come this far from to learn and project that, because we are going to be held accountable.
Hallelujah. So you can be right and not righteous, Taryn. I think that's what you was getting at. Because you can be right, but is it righteous? Did you need to say that? So, and that comes with maturity. Absolutely.
And we talk about this all the time, because I'll be like, ooh, I'm learning. I could, the old me, or whatever. And I actually sit in that sometime to be like, oh, wow, I have grown. And I think that's a beautiful thing too, to where I can recognize it and not like boasting about it, but in a place of like, oh, like back when I would have, but now in a place of not being bothered. And I want to have more control over my emotions and things like that too, because if we're supposed to be those good stewards, good ministers, like that's what people remember. That's why they don't receive the drunk prophet or the the person, because you're thinking about like, look at your state and look at your this. So how are you gonna tell somebody? So having more self-control for that. and just stay righteous. It is stay righteous. And when you do that with love, then that's what Yah sent you to do, and that's your part. And then you'll watch it, grow from there.
Hallelujah. I love this lesson tonight. I was like, oh, I can't wait till we get into this because this is so on time. Like, talk about Yahusha saying you should do greater works than these. Like, he endured the spitting upon, the talking about him crazy, people calling him a demon, like all these things, as all he's doing is literally establishing the word of the Father. And so he said, they persecuted me, they're gonna persecute you. So that's why the internal work, the stripping us down, the sanctification, the purification, the cutting off, we gotta go into the shearing house and allow him to bind us up, to cut those things off of us, so that when he does release us back out into the pasture, we can be those representations to the rest of the flock.
This one of my most favorite things that Yahusha did was when I forget who, but the men were bringing a woman that had cheated on her husband, and they were bringing her to Yahusha, and they were telling him, this is basically she committed whoredom and all this stuff. Yahusha literally got down on the ground and started drawing in the sand. Like, I was just like, as he's taking this in, because he's listening to what they're saying, but he said, which one of you can be, I'm paraphrasing, how can you bring her to me and tell me about her sins when all of you right here are sinning? So before he said that, he was just like listening to what they're saying. And he got down on the ground and he was like drawing in the sand. And I'm like, so simple, like he's taking it all in, but he's not reacting from the flesh right then and there. He's listening, and then he speaks how only Yahusha speaks so perfectly.
Yeah, with wisdom.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's that moment, that pause before you even open your mouth, which is why, like, I've been going through, I read all of Psalms this week, like on audio. And there's this one part about, like, it talked about guarding your mouth a lot. We talked about that last week too, about like in Proverbs, it talks about like a man who guards his mouth, keeps himself away from trouble or affliction. But again, also just like guarding your mouth, putting a guard over it, like be quiet. But I think the elders always say that's why you got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Like, just
that's good.
Close your mouth. I hear that a lot of times from like a lot of older women, like, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Like, just it's really a work of like, the enemy has been defeated, but this flesh, we have to kill this flesh daily. So the enemy the only thing he can do is try to poke at your flesh. And is your spirit greater than your flesh in this moment? And sometimes the answer is no, sometimes the answer is yes, which is why we have to constantly be purifying and purging so that we can get control over this fleshly suit that wants to rise up and immediately respond with our first reaction. And sometimes your first reaction, or your new first reaction, is not what it used to be, but you still got some more work to do. Like Taryn was saying, like, I can be like, dang, back in the day, I would have just been like, da-da-da-da-da-da. But now, I paused and I still said something crazy out my mouth, but it wasn't as crazy as before. But yeah, I was like, okay, we got work to do. So it's still your initial flesh reaction. It's just not your initial fresh reaction from 5 years ago. It's your initial flesh reaction from today. And yeah, I was like, it's a lot better than it was 5 years ago, but like, we can still do some more work. And that's the humility of knowing that, like, wow, I've come a long way, but I still got some ways to go. Because I might not say it, but I held it in my heart, and it was like really irritating me. Like, when I was talking about that comment, like the fact that I even spent 30 minutes like thinking like they didn't really hurt my feelings, and like maybe I could like tell her this or do that was too much. That's still a fleshly response. So even though I didn't say nothing out of my mouth, I still meditated on what I could have said, or what I should maybe say, or what I can say. And yeah, I was like, even that is a fleshly response. It's better than not say, it's better than saying something, but like I was still meditating on it. So again, recognizing that there's still work to do, because getting to the point where I can just be like, okay, they said that, that's fine. I love you, forgive them, Father, they don't know what they do, and keep pushing with my life. Sometimes I can do that. Some days I can't. some days, like that, sometimes it takes a week for me to get over all the things that people said about me who don't know me. And now it doesn't take that long. You know, Christina said, yes, exactly. And to be walking in the spirit in the moment, because a lot of times they need to see us walking that way.
Mm-hmm.
That plants a huge seed. Exactly. I don't know. Not everybody follows me on Instagram, but like I was watching a Bible study from a Shabbat service in San Antonio, I believe, and he was literally talking about what we talked about last week about like the fruits of the spirit of like long suffering, gentleness, and patience. Those happen in the midst of affliction. Those happen, that's produced in the midst of your adversity, in your offense. And so they were saying the same thing, like the fruits of the spirit are produced in the moment. So if you're giving somebody, if you respond with someone saying something crazy to you and you respond in anger, they take the fruit of anger off your tree instead of the fruit of gentleness, our kindness,
Mhm.
our long suffering, our patience. It happens in the moment, which Christina is saying, like that is the working, that is how we produce the fruits of the spirit. It's not after the fact.
Wow. I just wanted to share something, if it's okay, about this, because I can't believe we're talking about this because it's like exactly what recently I was experiencing. Because remember, I was really talking a lot before, like super excited and just like lots of talking. And I've been really learning to pause. And it's actually been peaceful for me because there's a lot of things that Yahuwah is really trying to like say, hey, over here, like I really think he did give me a gift of gab, but I don't think I've been using it right my whole life, right? So I gotta just like be quiet, and then hopefully if I'm meant to be talking to others, I'm listening to him and all that stuff. So I've been really quiet lately, especially social media. I don't really want to even be there right now. It's so noisy and I have so much to learn, and I'm not going to learn what I'm going to learn from him. So anyways, I'm getting off topic. Well, not really, but I'm going to redirect myself. So I had to tell you, my brother came over and he's been asking me questions about Yahuwah. But no matter what I try to share, and I always pray and ask him before my brother comes over, please give me the words, right? Because I'm still learning so much. And no matter what I said, it's like he wasn't like frustrated or anything, but he just wasn't getting it. And before I would just be like, "No, no, no, watch this video, watch this," and he would just be like, "This is too much." So I didn't, go that route. I was really quiet, really slow to speak. And just really, I kept on saying in my mind, Father, please give me the words, right? So really less was more, but I was actually getting exhausted physically and even like emotionally, because it's not that he goes, I understand what you're trying to say, but he goes, I don't. And I don't know, it was just like I kept redirecting him and I said to my brother, I said, you know what? I'm just being honest. I have to be very careful when I tell you. I said, because I'm accountable for whatever comes out of here. And I said, I just don't have the answers. I said, but you have really good questions. And I said, I think that you really need to pray about this. And I really encourage you to go to him. And I said, and I really pray that you just pick up, because I bought him a Bible. And I said, honestly, Aaron, I would just pick up the Bible. Because I said, until, you start really going to him and picking up that Bible, it's really hard to even have these conversations because I'm really limited with what I believe I can tell him. So Yahuwah really helped me with that. And he also, when my brother left, I was like, I'm glad he went home. I was so tired because your heart's just hurting so bad for him. At the same time, there's like, you know what I mean? Like you just want him to be there, but like that's between him and the Father, and all I can do is pray. So I've just been praying more and zipping it more until he tells me to talk to someone, because I pray about it and then he'll let me know. So yeah, this was really nice to hear, because like you got to check yourself daily, because you can slip and you don't even realize you're slipping because you think it's good because that's what you think, but it's not what you think. It's his standard. So I'm still learning, but I'm so grateful to catch myself, or for someone else to catch me and be like, hey, you're yapping a lot. I'm like, you know what? You're right. I actually am. I love when someone calls me up, because I'm like, I need it sometimes. So that was just the one experience I had. I guess that's a praise, because I was happy for Yahuwah to really teach me that, because I need a lot of help.
Hallelujah. Look, Tanya put in the comment, she said, "You are fighting against your flesh and exercising self-control, an excellent display of the fruit of the spirit." Like that's one of the fruits of the spirit, self-control. And so when
Okay.
we are exercising, when we are overcoming our flesh, it is tiring. That's that, oh my goodness,
Oh,
endure to the end. It is emotionally draining sometimes because Yah is fostering a different habit in you. When you first start working out, it's hard. You're sore. It's painful. You're out of breath. It's the same work in the spirit. I tell people that analogy all the time. We go to the gym all the time, but we have to go to our spiritual gym. And you have to know that in your spiritual gym, you may not have the endurance to you might have the like when you first start like exercising in the spirit, it's you get tired easily. You
Oh
may
yeah.
like cave out, you may drop the dumbbell on your foot, whatever spiritual analogy is. Until you continue it, that's why like Noah was perfect in all his ways. It wasn't that he was perfect. He continued to practice perfection. Like you keep going back to that gym. You don't just stop when it gets hard. You practice perfection. You practice walking in the spirit at every moment, in every circumstance. And that is what makes you perfect in the eyes of Yah.
hallelujah. Alicia, that's growth. That's maturity. You passed the
Okay.
test.
Well, I didn't pass today though. I have to share you something else.
You
I have to
gotta,
share.
you gotta give yourself some grace though.
Wait, I know, I'm
Day by
learning.
day.
I'm really, I know, but this is a different day. This is today. That was earlier, but this is today. I have to share. I think who wants me to tell everybody. It won't take long. Can I tell you? But I have grace for myself. Okay. And I'm so happy that I'm growing because that I need to. Okay, am I allowed to tell you just one quick story? Okay, so today I went and ran my errands. And I went into the store and I haven't seen this lady where I buy like my honey and everything and all like the healthy stuff. And so anyways, I'm trying to make sure I say this in a way that I should because the flesh, right, gets in the way. I have to be really careful. I gotta check myself. But okay, so anyways, long story short, at the end, as I'm checking out, she said, "Oh, you and I have a friend in common." I'm like, "Oh," so she starts telling me the story about this person that was actually talking bad about me, but I didn't even know that she was saying that. I don't even know what planet I was when she was talking. I couldn't piece it together. I wasn't even mad. Like, that stuff doesn't bother me anymore. Like, it's all good, right? I can't control what someone says about me and what they think about me, right? I have no control of that. So it wasn't anything terrible. And I don't want to get into the story because I don't think it's necessary. But I said to her, "Oh, yeah, yeah, I know who that is." So then this lady doesn't even like that lady. So I was like, "Oh no, here we go." And this lady isn't in the truth. So not to judge her. So I hope I'm not being judgy when I explain the story, but she was just kind of going about this lady and I'm like, "Yeah, oh yeah, yeah, I understand." But anyways, we got to a point where I was like chiming in, but not talking like mean or anything, but I had to stop and I said, "Hold on." I said, "You know what? I think we're gossiping." And she looked at me and she's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, we shouldn't even be talking about her, you know?" And like I said, "We're supposed to be praying for her." And because I felt very convicted, not like I know I wasn't saying anything malicious, like, "Oh, she's this, but like just talking about her, I shouldn't have even participated. I was kind of being like something told me to slow down, and I said a couple things just to kind of like, "Yeah, I agree. I've experienced the same thing from her and stuff." And then I was like, "Oh my gosh," I was so ashamed, and I said to her, "Seriously, we shouldn't be doing this." And I said to her, "I've been learning like gossiping is a sin, and it's in the book, like it's in the Bible." And and I said to her, "I'm not, we got to stop." And I said, I need to go repent and pray and ask for forgiveness right now. And she goes, "I think I do too." And she was all messed up. And I'm like, you know what I mean? So, anyways, I'm not going to say anything more, but it's just like, oh my gosh, I slept so quickly. And I don't know. I'm just like, that's not who I want to be? So you have to be so careful because it's like a little trap.
It is a trap,
And
but you
yeah,
recognize
and
it,
I was like,
Alicia, and
"Oh,
that's
no,
the
no, no,
thing
no, no, no,
about it.
no. We're not gonna go there."
Yeah, you recognized it. So again, that's still growth. That's still
Okay.
growth, sis, because you recognized it in that moment. You could have carried on with it, but the Ruach checked you. You know, the
Oh,
Ruach
I got
HaKodesh
checked.
checked you. It, you know, you were like, oh, wait a minute. I'm
Mm-mm.
I'm actually operating in sin right now. I shouldn't be doing this thing that I'm doing. And like I said, it's a daily thing. You know, we have to
Yeah.
give ourselves some grace, you know. So you recognize that, oh, I've slipped. Let me get myself back in check. Look, sis, we are wrong. We shouldn't be doing this. This is how we should be
Mhm.
operating. And let's move on. So that was good.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah, I told her we're supposed to repent, I said, and ask for forgiveness. I
Absolutely.
said, that's what I'm doing right now. I said, I can't do that. But she was like,
Hallelujah.
kind of, oh, and she said to me, she goes, well, you didn't do anything wrong. I asked you the questions. I said, I shouldn't have answered. I said, I am just as guilty, my friend. So, anyways, I love learning because you can slip and you don't even think it's wrong because, it's just like you're not like, I always need to line myself right beside his standard, like what he says, not what the world says, not what you think was right, right? It doesn't matter what we think, it matters what he says, right? So, I try to keep telling people that's where the truth is. That's your standard. So I don't care what the world tells me. That's just dangerous. But oh yeah, that was today. And I was like, I think I should tell them because yeah, I thought I should tell you. Okay, I'm done. Done
Hey,
with the story.
Alicia, first and foremost, thank you so much for that beautiful testimony. You didn't even realize it was testimony. You thought you were like, let me show you what I did bad. And that was for us all good. I mean, it just warmed my heart. Thank you so very much for that.
You're welcome.
And just your humility in it that you didn't even realize, like, you thought you was doing something, like, let me show you my mistake. And it was that's a beautiful testimony is what that just was, so thank you, sis, for extending that to us and sharing that with us. And I was wanting to share with that what Samaria and both Tanya said. They just don't realize that those two statements that you guys made in regards to Tanya saying, we hear this all the time. We say it all the time. It's right, but is it righteous, right? And then I've heard the saying, about you got 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? But tonight, thank you both because it was the first time I was able to like simplify that. And Yah says, be as the children and put that together because now that's what I'm going to use to measure some of the things that come out of my mouth, like, okay, the first ear, okay, is it right? Yeah. The next ear, is it righteous? Right? Because sometimes we speak in between without using those 2 ears first. And so, we can look at that literally, or you could take that figuratively when it talks about, hearing. They have ears to hear, but they do not hear. So thank you guys for that too. That's what I wanted to say.
I like that, Scripture. I have to put that in the notes. They have ears to hear what they don't hear, and then breaking that down into guarding your mouth and being slow to respond. Like Yah has been telling us this over and over again, to literally guard our mouths. And I like that first ear. Okay, what I'm about to say is right, but second ear, is it righteous? Because those are two different things. I really, really like that, and that's a practice I'm gonna be implementing more often. Like, yes, I implement it, but like more intentionally. All right, so we're gonna pick up at Genesis 37:18. So we're gonna about to get into I think that's where we are, 18. No, 12, I'm sorry. Now his brothers had gone to graze their father's flocks near Shechem, and Israel said to Joseph, as you know, your brothers are grazing the flocks near Shechem. Come, I am going to send you to them. Very well, he replied. So he said to them, go and see if all is well with your brothers and with the flocks, and bring word back to me. Then he sent him off to the valley of Hebron. When Joseph arrived at Shechem, a man found him wandering around in the field and asked him, what are you looking for? He replied, I'm looking for my brothers. Can you tell me where they are grazing their flocks? They have moved on from here, the man answered. I heard them say, let's go to Dothan. So Joseph went after his brothers and found them near Dothan. But they saw him in the distance, and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. Here comes the dreamer, they said to each other. Come now, let us kill him and throw him into one of the cisterns and say a furious animal devoured him, and we will see what comes of his dreams. So this goes back to a lot with sister. Well, I'm sorry, I put myself on mute on accident. goes back to what Sis Taryn was saying, was that if they didn't believe the dream, why are they doing so much to like make sure this dream doesn't come to fruition? You know, and so the thing that I pulled out was that they plotted. And so the first thing I thought about was Psalms 83. You know, if you have time, go ahead and read the whole Psalms. But the part I put on there was like, they have taken crafty counsel against thy people. They consulted against thy hidden ones. And it's just this, and obviously we know that this whole thing is not just between Israel sons. They also bring in other nation to help with the destruction of Joseph, or the dismantling, or the crafty counsel of Joseph, which Psalms 83 literally goes into detail about, like, oh, you brought in the Ishmaelites and the Midianites and the Moabites. But in this case, like Joseph's own brothers literally solicited the help of the Ishmaelites, or in some other people's translation says the Midianites, to help further their plot against him. And so obviously the word plot means to be deceitful, to be crafty counsel with other nations. And it's just this continuing thing. And so I also put on here like the prophets and then Yahusha as part of the notes. So we know that the prophets were always killed for correcting the people and letting them know that Yahuwah was not pleased with their actions in their leading the people. Just like Joseph, he's going to report to his father if his brothers are doing what they're supposed to do or not. He said, report back to me. The prophets got revelation. They got word from Yah concerning the rest of the children of Israel. So again, this prophet over and over again is raised up to go tell the people, hey, dad's not happy. The father is not happy with you. Your Elohim is not happy with the way that you are leading the people. You're leading them into destruction. Turn from your ways. What they do, they killed them because they didn't want to hear the correction. Then we have Yahusha, the only begotten son in relation to the children of Israel. He went to go speak to the heads, to the leaders, to the elders, and they're continually told that they are evil and they are not guarding the Father's business. They are not feeding the sheep, the people of Israel, the way that Yah has told them to. So we see this son who's younger. Yahusha's younger than all the elders and all the priests and all the Pharisees and Sadducees. This young man is being raised up to go out and tell the rest of the children that they are not doing what's proper, and they plot to kill him. Literally the repeat of all of this. And so again, also Psalms 118, speaks more about this too. I just was really in Psalms, so I just pulling out some of these Psalms. I forgot what part of Psalms I was going to put on here, but the whole chapter of Psalms 118 is really good. And then I also want to bring it full circle again to Yahusha. The whole picture of Joseph going out to go see what his brothers are doing is the picture of the parable of the husbandmen, like the evil servants and the owner of the vineyard who went. He sent servants to tell them that I'm coming to gather my fruit, and they killed them all. And then he's like, okay, finally, I'm going to send my son. Surely they'll reverence my son. It literally goes, and the husbandmen took his servants, and they beat one and they killed the other. This is speaking about the prophets. This is what this parable is about. And they stoned another. And it says, but last, the owner of the vineyard, he sent them his son. He said, surely they will reverence my son. But the men, they saw the son, and they said amongst themselves, this is the heir. Come, let us kill him and let us seize on his inheritance. What did Joseph's brothers say? Come, let us kill him. We will see what comes of his dream. So it's literally the same heart posture. It's the same spirit of like, we see the son coming, the one that the father has put as overseer, as the one that's reporting to us, the one that has the father's favor. We see him coming, and we're going to plot to kill him because we don't care that he's the son. Like, we're going to take the inheritance for ourselves. When I was seeing, I was like, wow. And so at the end of it, Yahusha literally says, like, he says unto them, did you never read the scripture? That the stone which the builders rejected is the same that has become the cornerstone. This is Yahuwah's doing it. It is marvelous in our eyes. And so, full circle moment, they rejected Joseph, but he became the foundation of their salvation. when the famine came. They needed Joseph for their deliverance. The thing that they wanted to reject and kill and throw away became their salvation. And that is literally Yahushua's like, the stone, I'm the stone that the builders refused, but I am now the cornerstone. Either you're going to be built on this or you're going to get crushed by it. Those are your two options. And it's marvelous in Yah's sight.
So even in all our foolishness, where we think we plotting and planning today, when the word says he goes before us, right? Because that's a depiction of what the enemy meant for our harm. You know, Yah already knew he had a plan for that out of that choice. So he already went and lined that up. And the Ishmaelites is family, right? Ishmael being saved, him and his mama, when they went off in the wilderness and the angel came and ministered to him, it's coming all the way full circle from the bloodline to still be that blessing, right? Because in reality, he gets sold right into the very thing that the enemy tried to kill and use that too. But I think about like what Tanya was saying, the moms and all of them, that lion spirit, that deceit is still amongst that. It's rooted in that family because they're conjuring up a whole story. Like, get your facts together, line everybody up. Well, let's go kill this thing. And I mean, just the plotting and planning. But going back to how Laban confused everybody and did the scheming and stuff, just all of that in the bloodline. And I mean, it could go back to Jacob's mama too, how, you know, she was putting him up, but the lie itself has so many brothers and sister enemies that just that deceit and everything was still rooted there.
Oh man, telling that internal work, that internal washing is so necessary.
The introspection.
I'm gonna pull up Psalms 118.
Is that like the bloodline curse? Because we know the blessing is way bigger than that, right? But again, with that lying or deceit or whatever whole thing, like how we don't know what our parents were into and things like that. And when we're trying to stand in truth and really figure out like cycles in our own life,
Like
you
ancestral,
know, yeah. So
curses,
you
right?
try to, you know, even if you can't name that thing, you know, you're trying to make sure that's cleansed without, because it does have some sort of root, you know, even when we're talking about like our kids acting out or just some other things, some confusion things, rebellion things, whatever, you know, like to track it back down to breaking that bloodline curse, because that's 10 of them. Again, all 10 of them, 11 brothers are agreeing to that lie and craftiness of, you know, confusion and deceit and whatever.
Yeah. Okay, so Psalms 118 is the part about the stone that the builder refused. Like, I really suggest you read the whole chapter, but I'm going to skip down to 20. So this is the gate of Yahuwah through which the righteous may enter. I will give thanks to you. Answer me, you have become my salvation. The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Yahuwah has done this, and it is marvelous in our eyes. Yahuwah has done it this very day. Let us rejoice today and be glad. Yahuwah, save us. Yahuwah, grant us success. Blessed is he who comes in the name of Yahuwah. From the house of Yahuwah, we bless you. Yahuwah is Elohim, and he has made his light shine on us. And so, yeah, the whole chapter really talks about like being saved from your enemies. Like, Yah didn't give me over to death. Like, you know, he chased me severely, but he has not given me over to death. Like, it's literally, we can see it in Yahushua's life, but since we're going over Joseph, you can see it in Joseph's life. Like, Joseph was given over to be chasing heavy. We know his story gets worse as we're going to continue, but even just this itself, the nations conspiring against him, like his brothers, the Ishmaelites, conspiring to literally just afflict him. Joseph thought he was going to die multiple times, but Yah didn't give him over to death because he had another plan for him. And so I just really wanted to put Psalms in there, and also Matthew 21, verse 33 through 42 is like the whole entirety of that parable. What I read to you guys was just like scattered verses, like, you know, bits and pieces, but like the whole entirety of it, so you can see like this full picture moment of the repeating of what happened to Joseph happens to Yahusha. And he's given this parable of like, my father sent out his servants, which were the prophets, over and over again. Y'all beat him, y'all killed him, you stoned him. And then my father sent me. He's sending his son, and y'all like, we're gonna kill the heir. And so for us to understand why Yahusha says like all the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments, because Yahusha understood the fullness of what the prophets went through. They were the bannermen before he got there. They had already been doing that work of declaring what Yah has said, telling the people to repent. You know, that's what John the Baptist, the voice in the wilderness, saying, repent for the kingdom is nigh. All the people that came before Yahusha were literally doing the same work. But Yah's like, this time I'm gonna send my son. This is the last one I'm sending. If you don't receive him, you can't receive, you will never have me. Which is why he is the only begotten son. He's the last word made flesh. He is the word made flesh, the last attempt that Yah has to save us. He's like, this is the last one I'm sending. If you don't, that's why I was like, if you do not receive him, if you receive Jeremiah and Isaiah, cool. But if you can't receive Yahusha, you don't get Yah. And it's just, go ahead, sis. Ramsey? Sis Ramsey? I thought her mic was open. I thought she was about to say something.
Oh, I'm sorry, dear. Let me mute myself.
No, I thought you wanted to say something. You're fine.
Okay.
But yeah. So those are kind of like all of my notes. I know we didn't finish, like, let me finish reading the chapter so we can like continue dialogue. So we're gonna get into Reuben. So with 21. When Reuben heard this, he tried to rescue him from their hands. Let us not take his life, he said. Don't shed any blood. Throw him into the cistern here in the wilderness, but don't lay a hand on him. Reuben said this to rescue him from them and take him back to his father. So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, his colorful robe he was wearing, and they took him and threw him into the cistern. The cistern was empty. There was no water in it. As they sat down to eat their meal, they looked up and saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. Their camels were loaded with spices, balms, and myrrh. And they were on their way to take them down to Egypt. Judah said to his brothers, what will we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood. His brothers agreed. So when the Ishmaelite merchants came by, his brothers pulled Joseph up out of the cistern and sold him for 20 shekels of silver to the Ishmaelites, who took him to Egypt. So another parallel that I saw was that Judah was smart enough to know that, you know what, I don't actually want to be the one responsible for his death. Let me get another nation involved. Is that not what Israel and Judah did to Yahusha? They helped the process along, but they sold him to the Romans to actually do the killing, to actually do the deed. And it's just like, do we not see this? It's the same story. Except for Joseph, didn't have to die for anybody, but he was used to save the people from famine. But it's just like, and then we have this mention, like, he was in this well, but there was no water. So we know the water representation of, like, Yah being there to like strengthen us and cleanse us and restore us. Joseph didn't have water. Joseph felt hopeless. Joseph was just like, this is it for me.
The enemy wants to put you in a dry place. Right. That's the whole point, because the word waters us and fills us, but the enemy, so it's the pit of the dry place. So, yes. You isolate from, like, they talk about that, how they rehabilitate prisoners, right? They put you alone by yourself, somewhere where it's dark, dry, away from people and all of that. But the not being able to be watered, like, that's big. Because,
Yeah.
now you focused on all the other things, like I'm dying of thirst, whatever, all that stuff.
And it's like a place where there should be water, which is the thing, because like he was surrounded by his brothers. They were eating a meal over him. A place where there should be water, a place where there should be covering. It's literally Cain and Abel all over again. Your brothers, your sisters are supposed to be a fortress of protection, but now they are a fortress of deceivers who want to kill you. It's like, whoa. And so when I see that he was like in this wilderness where there was no water, it makes me think about Ishmael's mother in the wilderness, and Yah put a fountain of water in her midst. And so it's crazy that it would be the Ishmaelites to come get him out of a place with no water, when that is what Ishmael's well, obviously his descendants probably don't know the fullness of that story. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. We don't know. But the fact that Ishmael himself is a product of being met in the wilderness with Yahuwah, revealing himself in the fountain of water in a place where there was none. I'm blown away by all the things that like I'm seeing as we're reading this, and just the hypocrisy. I won't call it hypocrisy. Yeah, the hypocrisy, because as a brother, the word brother in Hebrew means you're supposed to be a fortress, but here we see brothers conspiring to kill. Not this, they just didn't just throw him down there. They sat and they ate a meal. They sat and they broke bread while their brother was crying out, asking him, why are you doing this? Help me up. Like, please don't do this. Ate a meal, no concern. But was smart enough to know, we can't kill him, no, because that's a little too much.
So Reuben couldn't stomach the blood part. He didn't want that blood on his head. So he just tossed it out there, but he still was going wrong with it. But he was trying to find an out for it not to be like on his conscience. So
he was gonna try to go behind their back.
Yeah, but he still negotiated. He still, yeah.
And again, going back to this whole, Reuben is supposed to be the firstborn, but he has shame now on him.
Mm-hmm.
His whole house probably looks at him like, we really don't care what you got to say. It's this, like his reputation has been hurt. His authority is now undermined with his brothers. He's the firstborn, but now that doesn't matter to them. So even him saying this, he's trying to go about it in a way to where he knows that they probably don't reverence or revere him as the firstborn because of his own sins that he committed. Like, it's so many different layers here that we could literally pick apart just Reuben's role and how it was affected. We could talk about Judah. Judah is now first in line. Like, so like the two first in line, right? So Reuben, the first in line, who got his inheritance taken away from him because of his foolishness, and then Judah, the next first in line, are both saying, let's not kill him. But it's still, Judah's intentions was, I don't want to do it, but if someone else does it, it's fine. But like, I myself am not going to do it, which is still evil on both levels. Like, you are a participant in the crafty counsel of the destruction of your brother.
You know how they say, like, when you first, start studying, you get one good word and then you like meditate on that word. But again, it's, I know the plans I have for you. The plans are good and not evil, and like to just continue to meditate on that. So even with all this craziness and deceit going around, circling him, I mean, breaking bread over his head. But soon as he released the word, like, let's not kill him, let's sell him, then here comes, it's like the ram in the bush. Like, soon as that happened, like, here's the way. And it's like the Lord is saying, yep, like, that's the plan. Like, we can go with that, because here's the out, and if you think about it, let's see, who was it? Reuben said it, then Judah confirmed it, and then the help was there, right? So that's the 1, 2, and then there's the help. Yep, sell them.
Hoo-wee. Yeah. So while all this is going on, clearly Reuben's not there, because in 29 we see, when Reuben returned to the cistern, and he saw that Joseph was not there, and he rent his clothes, like he was heartbroken. He went back to his brothers and he said, the boy isn't there. Where can I turn now? So we're seeing at this point, like, Reuben is the only one that has like any sense of like compassion or remorse. So they got Joseph's robe, they slaughtered a goat and dipped the robe in the blood, and they took his robe back, his robe of many colors back to his father and said, "We found this. Examine and see if it's your son's robe." Like, just, ooh.
They didn't even say brother. He said your son.
See if it's your son, not our brother. You know, very detached. Very detached. Like, see, this is your son's robe. Not see, this is our brother's robe. They were so detached from their role of brother.
That was a good point.
Because we talked about this whole, like, how Jacob wasn't really attached to Yah being his Elohim until later. And we're seeing the same thing, like, the sons do not see Joseph as their brother. They just see him, oh, that's Jacob's son.
Yeah.
You know, like, they just were so hurt. This is not my brother. This is our dad's son. Like, you know, sometimes, like, I know when growing up, you be like, when parents have a difficult child, one parent be like, your son acting up today. Your daughter has done some things today. Like, it's like the detest. I can't stand what this person has done. I don't even want to claim them. Like, that's the energy that they were giving Joseph. Like, is this your son's robe? It was so much like family drama. And so his father recognized it and said, "It's my son's robe. Some furious animal has devoured him. Joseph has surely been torn to pieces." Then Jacob rent his clothes. It's so funny, we're seeing that Jacob rent his clothes and Reuben both rent his clothes. Like, both of the head of house and the supposed head of house should have been head of house, both had similar reactions. He put on sackcloth when he mourned for his son many days. All his sons and daughters came to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. "No," he said, "I will continue to mourn until I join my son in the grave." So his father wept for him. And so at this point, because we know that Jacob loves Joseph most, he's like, I couldn't care if all y'all came, if all my grandkids came and talked to me, I could care less. Like, I'm gonna be feeling like this until I die. Like, and the fact that they were so, they lacked so much compassion. They didn't even love their like, you can't love your father and allow him to operate in this space, this heart posture of depressed and distress, knowing that he said, I'm going to be like this until the day that I die. I have no joy. Like, I'm over life. Like, I'm just going to be mourning until the day that I die. Them seeing that in literally the coldness. Teach me back to that scripture in Timothy, like, in the last days, the people will be lovers of self. They will be cold. They will be heartless. Like, all these things. The sons were displaying all of that in the face of the man that brought them forth into the world.
Yeah, it shows how broken they were. You know, that inner work that still needed to be done so bad. You know, it was needed so much that they could look their father in the eye like this. Even the fact that they could even throw their brother in the pit and then even conspire to put blood all over his torn up coat to take it. There has to be something broken in you to do that. You know what I'm saying? It's so much that they need to deal with. Just like us, we have so much brokenness and trauma and drama in our lives that we need to deal with, that we cover up on a day-to-day, you know. And it's been happening, you know, as we can see, as far back as this, it's been happening, and it still continues to happen today. But in such a time as this, Abba Yah is revealing these things to us so we can work that stuff out, where we can get ourselves, allow him to come in and clean us up, where he can abide in us, because he cannot abide in that unclean, broken place. And so he's revealing that brokenness to us so, you know, we can lay it at his feet and allow him to come in and heal and restore.
Hallelujah. I think seeing the part where you talked about, like, because they were broken, this whole, like, dipping the coat in the blood, all of this was a way for them to cover up the brokenness in themselves. Like, they did all of this evil. So again, hindsight, looking at applying it to our life, when people do things to us, a lot of times, again, projection, they're doing things to cover up their own, the wickedness and the evil that they do to you is them attempting to cover up their own brokenness by pointing the finger and be like, oh no, like, this happened over here, like, you did this, da, 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 da. whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, it's really them trying to cover up their own like error, their own heartbreak, their own trauma. And you are the vessel in which they are inflicting that persecution on to not have to deal with their own. Which is why, like, you know, take the beam out your own eye before you worry about what's in somebody else's eye. It's literally the whole thing that Yah has been constantly calling Israel to do is to love him so much that they will want to do the work. That we will want to do. That's the new covenant. Like, I will put my new spirit within you, and I will cause you to walk in my ways and do these things. So us literally coming here tonight and with every day, with each passing day, being like, okay, well, how am I applying God's word to my life? Why is it hard for me to apply this word to my life? Me, figuring out, not like saying it's all about you, but like you worry about you, what y'all's trying to do in you, so that you can be more effective in what y'all's calling you to do. Like this whole lesson is little, like, yes, we're talking about like what happened to Joseph, but like it became so much deeper when the focus is on us figuring out how do we respond when people rebuke us? How do we respond when we're just sharing the good news? Do we recognize that we need to have a mountain of love? Do we recognize that someone's responding to us out of hurt, pain, anger? They lack fruits of the spirit, but you are held to a higher calling. So you need to be more concerned about what's coming out of your mouth, even if you're right. Like all of this, right? And in this, you know, I know in other accounts, like in some of the Apocrypha books, we get to hear more of like what Joseph was saying during this. But what we have here just in Genesis 37, we don't get to see that Joseph was just pleading with them for his life. We don't see that account here in Genesis, but we can see, I think it's in Jubilees or Jasher, where Joseph is in the pit and he's asking them, like, why are you doing this? I'm crying. He, you know, like he's looking at one brother, he's looking at like Naphtali or Zebulon, he's looking at one of them, he's like crying, and he's asking them, like, why are you doing this? Help me. And a few of them have some remorse in them, but not enough conviction to actually rise up and say no. And so there's all these different things that are going on in the hearts of people who may even know and recognize that you are coming with the word of Yah, that you are coming in the spirit of Yah. But it's something in them that's unhealed, that's hurt, that's perverted, that the enemy has a hook in their heart that won't allow them to walk in the righteousness. And so we, walking in righteousness, having to be aware and have the wisdom and understanding to know that with each person that we're talking to. And it's hard work. It is so hard. You guys know, even with just dealing with family, how hard that can be when you're just giving a word and they look at you and they rebuke you. But after you do it, it's like after you give the word, the hard part is that fighting with the flesh to keep your mouth shut and to let the Holy Spirit do the work. While you're sitting in the cistern, because you have water, you have his word, which is the difference.
We've been living longer outside of Yah's truth than we have been in Yah's truth. So therefore, the initial first reaction is always be to respond from the flesh. But if we just pause for a moment and think before we speak, we can literally let the Ruach HaKodesh work in us and speak through our mouth. That's the part that is so hard to do. And I don't want to put the blame on others, but it's because this world is a lot of the reasons is because this world is so fast paced. People want answers quick. Like they're saying something to you and you want to respond, but you want to respond in love and righteously. And so, I mean, it might be disrespectful to people, but if I'm in face to face with people and they're coming at me with so many questions and I can't even have a moment to even think before I'm like this. Like I need to you got to give me a minute because I need to just, process what you're asking me and answer you right instead of like just jumping at it and going in the flesh.
I think when you said that, it makes me think about something I've been saying in my heart a lot of times. Like I really just gotta I read through like Yahusha's life and how when they was asking him all these questions, trying to trick him up because it's a trap, Most of the times, all the times, it's a trap. People come at you with all these questions. You should just be looking at them like, so what do you think about it? Like responding with a question, because I'm like, you're not about to, I recognize that you're trying to like bum rush me. You know, they call it love bombing when someone just does all, people try to bomb you, overload you with questions, overstimulate you to try to see where, if you answer too soon or you didn't give a full revelation of what you're trying to say, then they'll pick that apart and use that to try to crucify you, which is what they were constantly doing to Yahusha. Every single time the chiefs came up and asked him these questions, he would just look at them and be like, I know the spirits are coming in, and I know you're trying to set a trap for me. And literally the scripture says they were trying to lay a trap for him to see where they could like accuse him. Like that is literally what people do most. Sometimes they don't even know, people don't even know that they're doing it. Because again, it's their first reaction. But you having to have the spirit of Yah in you, walking like Yahusha walked, to be like, oh, well, who do they say that I am? Or so why do you believe that? You know, respond to a question, and then maybe they'll get quiet, and then maybe you can give some wisdom after the fact. But in that moment, we never respond because just because they want. I heard, oh, there's a saying, if y'all can remember what it is, like your lack of preparation doesn't, something about like you trying to be in a rush doesn't equate me having to give you something immediately. Like your urgency is not my urgency. And so taking that, like, we change the environment, we change the atmosphere, we're the light of the world. So therefore you're trying to come at me with all these questions, like, you're not about to change how I respond. I'm going to try to change how you respond by me standing in my shalom.
Right.
Like, hold on. Pause. I know you're in a rush to get this. I know you're in a rush to have this debate. I'm not debating with nobody. Let's pause for a second. We have to hit pause because no one else is going to hit pause.
Well, and when we talk about having that confidence, right? If we're that game changer, if that we really walk and carry that authority, then just know, just the fact that your presence, everything is trembling at it because it is trying to come after you and shake you and do all that. If you are supposed to bless and minister and, you know, do Yah's work, then you're already, and how would I say, like me and all my baggage. How do I walk into like your space and you truly minister to me when I'm carrying all of my baggage? That's my family stuff, my own mess, the bad decision, like the coherent bad decisions I made, not the, you know, ignorant, like not knowing type of thing. But coming into all that stuff, and you have to be girded up to know how to be effective to do the work, right? So yeah, I mean, because you know how people say like, well, I ain't like you anyway. Well, I ain't, you know, and they find a way to attack you in the midst of, it had nothing to do about that basic truth. But we have to have that authority and confidence to be able to command that presence and to sit in that. And then the enemy ain't gonna try us. Because it comes down to if they could keep poking, right? Then they'll break us down. And then we get in that flesh to like, why are we so defensive? Like we're defending the word, and we shouldn't have to defend the word like that. It's supposed to be about what's easy and good, and or know that you're fighting a spirit, not that individual person. You know, they're on assignment to stop that person from coming into the truth. So we have to see that for what it is, you know, and know, are we equipped to deal with this right now? Or how do we approach it right now? But what's that spirit, whether it's their insecurity, it's their trauma, not being mature. I mean, you know, you can start listening to all of that stuff. And I think what Sis was saying, just like basking in that, you say like, and you think about all that stuff, then you can change and shift that atmosphere.
You nailed it, sis. Like right on the head. You nailed it. That's Dominic in the background.
Were you still talking?
I just want
your mic went back on mute.
It's okay. Don't worry about it. He's a little upset this evening. We're taking the pacifier away, so just bear with me. Y'all keep me in prayer about that too, okay? That's gonna be 3 days of whoo.
Yes, this will keep you in prayer. But yeah, that's, so the last part of the chapter was, so meanwhile, the Midianites sold Joseph to Egypt, to Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard. So again, so does yours say Ishmaelites? Mine says, mine says Midianites and Ishmaelites. So I have both mentioned. I don't know if there's but yeah,
both mentioned.
Are mentioned in this. So again, just cousins, all the family. Like we got the cousins from Ishmael's side, Hagar's mom. Then we got the Midianites from Keturah, Abraham's third wife, or third, the third woman that he had children with. And so it's just a lot going on. We just see at the root of all of it, it's like jealousy of all, like when you look at all the different families, like the birthright came to Israel. I mean, to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. That's what Yah said. And Israel chose Joseph. So again, we got the other nations who already really don't really mess with Israel because they know that, like, oh, this is Abraham's real kids. This is where the promise really goes to. And there's these different pockets, of the favor was for Israel. The favor was on Joseph. So it's this recognition of the favor. And then trying to be, I guess, they're joining together to be against the favor that Yah has on a person.
So you know how sometimes pastors will say, like, you and all your mess, you'll find light kind, busybodies find the busybodies, gossipers find the gossipers, whatever, and all that stuff. So out of all the brothers, they all have identity issues from some whatever, not living in their own. And that's why they get tied up into the envy, jealousy, whatever, and the secret keeping and the plotting and planning. Because if you really was, again, the identity about yourself, why are you in somebody else's business? I mean, like, deliberately, like they did 10 levels of, we gonna strip them naked. We ain't gonna give them water. We ain't gonna, like, they got a whole list of mess that they're doing. Like, he's a stranger and an enemy, instead of just, that's you got your own little stuff. I mean, build your house and do your stuff, but just the deliberate planning and all the family secrets, like, and then they all, for whatever reservations they had, they all kept the secret and stood in front of their daddy and was like, I pray about them family secrets, like, what, because that's a whole message in itself.
I think you're like the whole point, Taryn, when you were saying, like, well, if you was focused on what you supposed to be doing, because that's how this whole thing started. Like in the first part of the chapter, it literally tells us that Joseph gave an evil report because of the sons of Zilpah and Bilhah. He gave a bad report to their father, meaning they weren't doing what they were supposed to do. So he had to report, like, hey, they ain't doing what they're supposed to do. Again, they know. And so when he goes again to the rest of the brothers, like, oh, here he come. We already know dad done told him to report, like, tell him what we're doing. If you were doing what you're supposed to do, you wouldn't be worried about someone seeing what you're doing and then giving a report back to the father, to the head of house. But again, because you're not doing what you're supposed to do, you get offended by the one around you who is doing what they're supposed to do, and y'all giving them favor for doing it. That's that you shall not covet. Thou shalt not covet. You shouldn't want what your neighbor has. You shouldn't want what your brother has, because Yah has something else for you. So, but yeah, that's our 37 for the night, y'all. Any other comments, questions, commentary, insights before we close out in prayer?
I know we're coming from all women's perspective, but do you think that, I don't know how I'm trying to say this. Do you think they're acting with ego the way that men do, even though that they're brothers, even though that they're from the same bloodline, different mothers? But do you think that that's how they're coming from. Like, they're not thinking like, we should be following the way of Yahuwah and all of that.
Yes, I think they're just being people, just like us, just everyday, normal people. The same issues that we have today, they had back then. The same things that we deal with now, they dealt with back then. Again, I think we have to really look at these situations and not like just Bible stories. These were real, normal, everyday people living life just like us, having the same challenges and trials and struggles that we have today. So if we just, and that's why I believe the Most High sent Yahusha so he could operate and he could show, how we all deal with stuff fleshly. He sent someone that could relate to us the way we are, so that we could see that we can change. We don't have to be this way, And so just like we deal with all these things, I feel like those guys dealt with all kind of stuff. Whatever men deal with, they dealt with. However, I was talking with my kids and they were doing a Bible study or something, and they was asking something about Yahusha. I was like, do you think, he had desires like a man or something? And I was like, he was a man. I'm sure he did. He just didn't succumb to those things. He didn't allow himself to get over into sin. And that's what we have to realize, that, they weren't just so saved and so whatever. They were just like us. We are no better. We're all in the same situation. And I think that's how we need to look at it. And we can learn from their mistakes. We don't have to make those same mistakes. So we can look at that and learn and do better. Aisha said something. Absolutely, ego and men more so than women have to check theirs more often. And so, yeah, I just feel like they were everyday people just like us, dealing with the same things or whatever. And we can choose the way of the Father, or we can choose the way of our flesh in sin. And that's what it boils down to. Which way are you going to go? Are you going to go the straight and narrow, or are you going to go the way of the wide and the broad, and have to deal with all these situations and circumstances? And if you do choose to do that way, then Abba Yah has sent grace and he sent mercy to where we can get back over to the straight and narrow. If we would turn, he tells us in the word that if we would turn from our wicked ways, if we would come back to him, if we repent, and that he will forgive us and he'll cast our sins into the sea of forgiveness. But we have to have that repentant heart. We have to allow him to come in. We have to allow the Ruach HaKodesh to help do the work in us, to get back in right standing and be justified and all that good stuff, and sanctified and set apart, so that he can come in and he can abide in a clean vessel.
Yeah. I wanted to say something about men versus women. I think because we have these accounts of our ancestors, we can see like the differences in how women react and how men are reacting to envy or jealousy or ego in their hearts. We have the account with Rachel and Leah and how that came about. There was more so manipulation of the situation to get what they wanted, versus the men were outright like, we just gonna kill them. We're just gonna like get rid of it. It was a little more aggressive in a sense, where with the women, I'll say it manifested more of like sleight of hand, little things here or there, little manipulations here and there. Y'all know how women are. We know we're women. We know how we can be when we are not operating in the spirit. When we want to get our way, we don't come in with full force and ego and aggression like, oh, I'm just going to just snatch this person up out the earth realm. It's more so like subtle.
Well, the group of men want to dominate too, whereas women might want to, like, I'm worried about self in this situation, but with the men, it's more dominant. So yeah, the sleight of hand, or, I just need you to think like me. I just need you to bring me over to this side. We think about it more from that perspective. But for the men to just fast forward to kill them, get rid of them, it's that's a dominance type of thing.
Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying one can be without the other. We do know
Right,
some,
right, right.
right.
And you see it just like Tanya saying, human wise, everybody, come up with some kind of way. And if we really sit and check ourselves, throughout the day, it'd be some of that. We don't be right all day long from wanting to bend somebody else to our will, or have them see things our way that's going to benefit us, just one-sided like that.
I was just wanting to elaborate on too what I was trying to say, you guys, that with men, they're different. Like, men are not even going to have a sit down and have a conversation like this for hours, like we're doing. We'd be all into it, talking about tearing and praising Yah, and then Imaya, please, thank you. And men, I mean, you just know how they are. Like, they say something and they walk off. Okay, right. She's not gonna really let me speak right now. I'm sorry, y'all. Hopefully, y'all understanding what I'm saying, but men, they're just different. They don't hold long conversations, and then when they mad, they don't really express themselves. They don't be talking about this is how I feel, which is how women can be catty, because women, we'll get there. If you're not in the spirit and you in your flesh and you in your feelings, you talking about your feelings, she talking about hers, and y'all ain't forgiving or whatever. And now you like, okay, well, this ain't gonna work, and or a woman versus a man, he ain't gonna give me what I want, but this is how I feel because I done told him over and over again. A man just he gonna hold it all in. He gonna watch it. Some of them can get catty, and it's terrible when a man is catty, right? But when a man does what he does, they hold that stuff in, and you be like, "What are you thinking? How do you feel? Let it out." And then to their heart is made of stone and cold. That's why y'all couldn't really use them, even in that faith when Yeshua returned, who was at the tomb, because the men was all like, that ain't happening. You know what I mean? While the women was like, he said it, I believe it, I love him. You know what I mean? And this is what's gonna happen. And the men were just like, they couldn't even believe it because they just so like stone cold at times, And a woman's heart, I don't know if you ever seen a woman that has a heart like a man and it gets so cold. That's the worst part. You never want to see a woman get like that. But typically women find alternate ways of being able to deal with certain things. And no, they might not have put him in no pit, but they would have put him a pit throughout his life and made him suffer in many other different ways. So it's a thing, like Tanya was saying, like we all deal with this thing. And so, yeah.
I wish I could talk without Dominic screaming in the background, because what you just said hit like a whole bunch of us. I promise you it did. I feel like it's kind of like, it's hard when you don't have a mom anymore. So the things that you would want to go talk to your mom about, when it comes to men, you can't go to her in regards to that. And I feel like what you just said was something that a mama would tell their daughter to be mindful of with how a man thinks. And it's like, thank you so much for that message, because sometimes it'll get discouraging because we have that gentleness and softness with us, and they're just built differently, And so it can be discouraging at times because you're just like, why are you so hard? Like, you could get it together, So
Yeah, we have a saying in our family, and I had shared it with Aisha. She was trying to say it a little while ago. Our little girl hearts, that little girl heart on the inside of us, we have that, where men basically, they say what they say and they done. And, we get into all our feels and, well, I want you to understand. And I'm trying to, we want them, and they're like, well, yeah, I don't understand. And, basically I'm done and I don't want to talk about it. But we have that little girl heart that really tries to, get you to the place where we are, where a lot of times men, it's like, yeah, I'm not trying to do all that.
I just wanted to say too, so my husband, he's not like in the truth right now, but he's very, very patient because I talk a lot and he has very few words. So, he's gone all day. So when he comes home, he's like, now I've calmed down, right? Slow to speak. I don't but when I was first coming into truth, I couldn't stop talking about it. And he's like, whoa, because he's not even in any of it. So he was just like, this is too much. Back the truck up, slow down, hit the brakes. But then I didn't I just wasn't catching myself. It was my flesh. It was my emotions, because it's my husband, right? So I didn't realize it then, and I think Yahuwah what really taught me something, which I have been doing much better, praise him for that, is that he put me in a situation with my husband, and my husband had so many questions one day, and I was like, uh-oh. And you know what Yahuwah showed me? You aren't ready to tell him what he needs to hear. And maybe it's not me who's going to tell him that, right? And right, so it's just like I have all this emotion. I cry like too much, especially lately. But like I'm very emotional and very sensitive, but also I just love everybody so much. And my husband's my best friend. And I just, oh my gosh, but I need to be, he showed me you need to be praying more and you need to be listening to me more, because I've been finding it pretty, like I've been very stepping back and being quiet and observing that like he's putting me in places and he's giving me the right words to the people who need to hear it or who are ready to hear it. But I was so busy before yapping that I was, and I could have caused or could cause damage, right? So I have to, he really taught me to like step back. And I'm really glad he put me in that place, because I was actually really stressed out. Like, oh my goodness, my husband has great questions and I don't have the answers. But I had no problem blabbing before, right? I was just throwing so much information down his, ears like, oh. So anyways, I don't know if this is kind of goes with this, but like, yeah, like maybe Yahuwah doesn't have the words to give me to give to him, So he's helped me a lot with that. And then I'm in a grocery store one day and he led me to the lady in the spice aisle, 17B. She didn't want to stop talking about the truth. Well, she didn't even know the truth. She wrote his name down on a cardboard box. I didn't tell you that story, but we won't go there. But it was just like it was all him talking. And it was like, wow. And it was peaceful, but it was actually like the most special thing to see him talking to her. And like, I was able to like have the right words. It wasn't forced. It all came, I don't know where it came. I mean, it had to come from him. I don't know what was going on there, but it was really, really amazing. But then over here, I'm stressing because I'm trying to like, I just want him to know, and I want him to know now, and I want him to change. And he's like, God, he doesn't want to hear all that. And I talk too much. So yeah. So do you know what I'm trying to say? Does everyone understand? Okay. Because I can ramble sometimes. I got to be on mute more. But yeah, so I'm really happy to hear all this, because I needed this today big time. Constantly reminding myself of this. So thank you. I'm done.
It makes me think of like how Yahuwah or Yahusha through Yahuwah was always saying that like be like a little child. Because we're talking about like being men and being women, but like when you break it down to a boy and a girl, like a boy child and a girl child, they're the same. They want to express their feelings. They want to tell you what happened to them. And y'all's trying to get every one of us, men and a woman, back to this space of surrender, to where the men and the women can both talk about their emotions, can both talk about what they were thinking or how something felt, because that's how we are as children. Like, y'all know I'm a nanny, so I work with little boys and little girls, but this client, it's a little boy, and like they're the same. Oh, my feelings are hurting. No, I need to do this and I want this and I want that. Like that gets lost somewhere in adolescence as children grow. And y'all's like, I need you to get back to this. And so, yes, we're saying men are hard, they don't show their emotions, but like I think that really just speaks to deeper levels of healing and restoration that Yah's doing in the hearts of his sons and his daughters. But we're talking about, when we're talking about men versus women, like Yah's doing a work, and maybe it may take a little bit longer for the men because they've grown so accustomed to being shut off, being closed mouth, not telling how they're feeling, because the world has told them a different way on how to go about it, but it wasn't Yah's way. Like Gina said, we've been walking outside of Yah for so long. We think that's normal. And Yah's like, it's not. That is that's a work of the Ruach that Yah has to do in his sons, to unlearn, to relearn how to properly express their thoughts, their hurts, their emotions to him, and also to the women that he puts in their life.
But I think with our spouses too, though, we minister from a place of what we think it's everything we know. It's how we watch them father, it's how we watch them in our relationship. So we're still coming in with a preconceived, like, you need to hear me from this space. So in the midst of that communication, however they handle us, it has a lot to do with how we walk in the door handling them from the get-go. And it's like, well, oh, they laugh and talk and have a different type of demeanor with friends and stuff like that, but their friends aren't judging them the way we are judging them. Their friends aren't coming in saying, well, I know all this stuff and this where you need to be and blah blah blah. Again, what LaTanya was saying, right, but is it righteous? So we come from the pure space of where the Yah say that, or how we should be handling, or pray about the spirit of offense and that sort of thing, because it's about building our relationship together, not pointing the finger to say you're wrong, right? To build together for that. I think that that's way more effective. And I'm saying that because that's like a walk that I'm things that I'm learning, or whatever, Yeah.
This week, well, over the past week, since my whole blood pressure thing was a big deal, my parents were worried. My husband was worried. I was not worried. I knew I would be talking with Yahuwah on my walks every day, like out loud, literally talking with him and telling him, show me what I need to do. I want to be an obedient daughter of yours. Please let me know what I'm not doing. And I think I have a handle on what I should be doing and what I shouldn't be doing. And my mother would have conversations with me about how, if it was up to her, she would have had me at the doctor's and on blood pressure medicine right away. And I just said, I'm not doing that. I'm giving myself 2 weeks to get a handle on this myself, because I have full and complete trust in my Father, Yahuwah. And she's like, I know you do, but because her mom had high blood pressure, didn't go to the doctors, died of a stroke. So I understand my mom is on high blood pressure medication too, but it's also a lot to do with my eating habits and my lifestyle. So coming back to talk, like one day my husband came home from work and we were talking about it. And before, like you had mentioned, sis, Taryn, about how we would react in Samaria 5 years ago, the way I would just like go at him, like be like, well, this, and I this time I was like, yeah, please help me here. Okay. Babe, I'm saying this in full and complete love to you. I know that you're worried about my blood pressure. I need you, because we have a 13-year-old son that I am with most of the day, homeschool and all that stuff. So because I'm here holding down the house, doing all the housework. When you come home, I need you to be that partner of mine, the other adult in this relationship with us. And I need you to just take out the trash when you see that it needs to get taken out. I don't want to have to say it. You know what I'm saying? Pick up your socks that are still in the bathroom on the floor when the hamper is right over there. And I'm saying this so kind and so nice, keeping my emotions in check, because I was like, don't do it, Gina. Come from a place of love and truly mean it. And he took everything in and he was just like, okay, I can do this. And I'm like, and I appreciate you for understanding me and accepting and receiving what I'm saying in love. But I also want you to know that because I'm saying this today, this message means for next week, the week after, a month from now. Like, I don't want to have to keep saying this to you. And so so far, so great. Praise Yah. So I just wanted to share that.
I heard a poll before, and it said the sexiest thing a man can do, and not so much as a man, a husband or whatever, right, was do the dishes. And they had a list of stuff like, oh, buy me dinner, get me gifts, get me this, and this. And it, like, literally the number one thing that everybody said was like, do the dishes or clean up behind yourselves. And it's like, it's little, but it's not. And my husband will say all the time, you get worried about the littlest thing, but is it little though? Because if I'm me and I'm built like that, all I tell y'all to do is put your god doggone stuff in the dishwasher. Like just wipe the counter and put it in. And then you're telling me I'm fixated on that. I'm doing the most. I'm about to get work. And I am. Because for me, I feel like it's like total, you know, like was it casual and you forgot? But then it's all the time. And then I'm outnumbered. I got 5 kids here. So I'm just saying this ain't just one person leaving the spoon, you know. But for him, he's saying turn it off. Don't think about it like that. But that little bit of help, like, first of all, you voiced it right. Yeah. And then it's like, okay. And then they don't realize that's the bone. But guess what? Fast forward, I don't even do them dishes. My husband get up and it's a whole thing now. He loved the dishwasher. He loved to put up stuff. He rearranged the refrigerator, all kind of stuff. But I tell Tanya all the time I'm tickled because
I receive that in the name of Yahushua HaMashiach.
you know, but we're just saying in a space of like, you blink and then you do get victory on it, but it's also the deliberate communication you did for that. Like, you know, just that one little thing, like realize I'm taking care of the kid all day.
I do it, sis. I'd pick up after him and
Yeah.
I'd do it. And in the beginning, like years ago, I'd be angry about it inside. And then now I'm like, okay, well, he works, he provides for the home and stuff.
Absolutely.
But still inside, I think I still had some angst about it. So that maybe what I wouldn't say it, but I think feeling it subconsciously or whatever, that would make my blood pressure perhaps rise a little bit. So it was just like, if you could just help me out a little bit, just be the other adult in this relationship with me, that could help me out immensely with my blood pressure.
And guess what? That turns out to be the sexiest thing ever. That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
The sexiest and healthiest. I'm done. This is funny. I love it. Girl talk. Look.
When y'all were talking about like your marriages and your communication, you know, like again, not discounting anything because I'm single, but like the way that Yah has wired my brain, all I'm hearing is relationship and how Yah is. Like, so in the sense, it's like Taryn or Gina, you're talking to your husband, like imagine you're being Yah talking to the rest of his children, like, okay, look, this is what I require. This is how I want to be loved. And you don't think it's that serious. Me asking you to keep the Sabbath, you think it's minimal. You don't think it's that deep. Like, why are you fixating on it? I'm asking you to eat clean. You're thinking that, oh, why are you so focused on that? I'm asking you to keep the feast days. You're thinking, oh, it's not that important. Why are you so worried about it? Just let me. And then people are responding, well, I want to do it like this. And why can't you accept the way that I love you like this? And it's like, but if we're really in a relationship and I'm expressing to you deeply within my heart, this is how I need you to love me. And your response is, yeah, I heard all that, but I'm still going to do it this way. What kind of strain, the strain that it puts on a marriage when your spouse, when you're coming to them in love, and you're saying, I like, you know, I provide for you. You know, I care for you. You know, I'm doing all those things for you. But you still can't hear me in the way that I'm asking you to love me, and vice versa. If your husband comes to you and he's, you know, he's open and transparent and vulnerable to tell you, hey, you know, the way that you did this or the way that you spoke to me that day, it really hurt me. And if you as a wife return and be like, well, you being too sensitive, that's, hold on, what's going on? Yah is trying, he's constantly crying out for us to hear him. He's constantly reaching out for us to see him, to know him, to be in intimate proximity, to understand his heart. The same way that we want someone to understand our heart and the things that we need. We are literally made in his image. So the things that you need to be received and loved and honored is the same way that Yah, because he put that in you, to want someone to sit with you and understand where you're coming from and also make the changes to love you properly. The reason that you are wired that way is because he's wired that way and he created in his image. And so it's a level of humility that we all have to come with in our relationship with Yah, because it reflects how we react in our relationship with our spouse and those around us. But if we can't get it right with Yah, if we can't listen to he's saying, these are important to me. This is good for you. This keeps the order, like the dish, this keeps the house together in order. You just putting your dirty dish in the sink keeps everything in its proper order. It's literally a mirror. That's what, like, literally, Sis Hulda, she was like, marriage is a mirror. Our relationship with Yah is a mirror, and he's a perfect mirror. So when we look in the mirror and we look at his face, we see how dirty we are. Oh, okay, maybe I do need to put my clothes over here in this basket. Maybe I do need to put this food over here. Maybe I need to celebrate. Like, that's the whole purpose of your relationship with Yah and with your marriage.
And that's what LaTonya was saying, when we think about everyday things, like literally, like he'll show us that in all the smallest little, amongst showing us ourselves and stuff too. And I think that I identify like what Gina is saying a lot because, as much time as we've spent of like, I just wish, he would do blah, blah, blah. But the big step of us saying, let's take a different approach. And like being big girl too, to like, I'm gonna try to say it this way and whatever. And I tell Tanya all the time, I'm like, girl, first world problems. Like, I mean, we, why you put the forks on this side? Why you put the thing on this side? And like just the first world problems from the standpoint of it's a relationship thing. And I think the enemy takes those little bitty things and blows them up. So if we are conquering those things, to just think about like, how we communicate out of love, or ask for help. When sometimes I'm in my prayer closet, I feel like I don't deal with pride a lot. But then after I started to get stripped down, it's all those little things because I know he's a provider. I know he takes care of me. But that little bitty thing that still could be a pride place of me not wanting to ask for help or really, so I'm mad at him, but I didn't explain to him why. And in the midst of that, in my head, I think I'm doing good because I don't want to open my mouth and go off and say nothing wrong. So I want to pat myself on the back that like I didn't flip, furniture. I didn't totally go off. But now I'm carrying all that and I'm projecting it in other places, which is unfair to him. And again, it's a silencing of just not a healthy communication thing. Right. So in all the relationships, and guess what? That bleeds into our kids, our friends, our parents, it bleeds into the whole thing of just because we're not sitting right with how would y'all have us handle this or how can I communicate better, and then when you finally release that thing like that, it's like, wow. Because I'm telling you, I'll be excited over that dishwasher and the kitchen being clean and oh, girl, you just don't know. I'm like, oh, I'm going to cook today. Like, oh, everybody be.
I love the turn that this took. Like, it's all connected. Because, again, we're talking about our responses, to things, whatever that response is. And I'm just so grateful. Like, I'm so grateful to how Yahuwah led this Bible study tonight. I had no idea we were going to get on this, but like, again, leaving space, leaving room. All we had to do was show up. All we had to do was go over what we said we're going to go over. All we have to do was get here. And Yah did the rest. And so like we could literally cut this whole study in half and make it two separate, like, okay, we got the Joseph study. Now we got to study about like relationships in marriage and in heart posture when it comes to serving Yah and how that reflects in your marriage and how that reflects, like we covered a myriad of things that are so applicable to you being whether you single or you married, because it's about relationships across the board. But yeah, guys, I love y'all.
And the fruits of the spirit, because that self-control, like that was good, because that's the whole point to the growth piece of it. And then we change ourselves, So I thought it was good too. Thank you.
Like, we talk about fruits of the spirit all the time, and most people mention like, okay, well, you're not being loving, you're not being patient. Like, but where's your self-control? You can say you have love in your heart all day long, but like you lack self-control, you didn't have gentleness, like what's the other one? Yeah, long suffering.
Yeah.
You just like, oh, I'm done with the situation, and you move like all these different things. Like we forget about those latter ones because we focus on the love is patient, love is kind, love is this, love. But it's just like love also is gonna be in the mud with you. Love is also gonna long suffer. It's going to be gentle in the midst of the long suffering, which is like a whole nother lesson. It's just like, okay, you want me to stay here and tarry, and I also got to be gentle with this person while I'm trying to get them to where they need to be. Like, it's so much. And it's so
And peace is one of them. We should be in shalom.
Shalom. That's that, being able to speak peaceably. Like, Joseph's brothers couldn't speak peaceably unto him. They didn't have wholeness, because that peace is literally the word shalom is connected to wholeness.
That's right.
It's connected to being complete. And so we don't really operate in the fullness of our peace unless we're operating in what Yah is trying to heal in us. Because if you're broken, you're not going to be operating peace. But if Yah's healing you and you're walking in your healing, then you can operate in peace at a much higher level. And so you get to, as we grow, we get to see like, okay, I respond like this. That was peaceable, but like, could it be more peaceable? Okay, Yah's still healing this in me. Okay, oh, I see how more peaceful I am this time. Oh, I'm a little more complete in this response now. Oh, wow, I'm way more sound in my response now. Like I'm a little, even the word quiet is here. Oh, am I responding? Let me be quiet. That's part of peace. Yes, peace is also tearing down and uprooting falsehoods. Like, peace is not the absence of conflict, but it's having peace in the midst of conflict. So yes, war is raging. We are in a war. We still have peace though, because it's an internal thing that Yah does in us. So I don't ever want people to think like, oh, being the fruits of the spirit of having love and having peace doesn't mean that you're going to get into situations where there's conflict, where there's tribulation, where if Yah's calling you to speak a thing, blessed are the peacemakers. Peacemakers make peace, even if it means you have to go to war. And so in the sense of like, I'm going to say this thing because Yah's called me to say it. As a peacemaker, I have to correct the error. But as you're speaking the word of peace, the word of truth, those around you can reject it, and it creates war. Because Yah's calling you to go in and to uproot the thing that people are praising that's a lie, that's an error, that's a trauma, that's festering. And because they're comfortable with it and you're not anymore, because Yah's calling you to something greater to pull it up, everybody around you is going to want to make war with you. But in the midst of people making war with you, how do you respond? That is real shalom.
So are you saying that when I'm sorry, I just had one question. Are you saying when we're healing, in the middle of healing, we can still have peace, right? Okay. I was just trying to make sure I understood. Okay.
I was going to say, Samaria, I love when you end on that note, because as you're ministering to us, it's your growth moment, because you do have a heavy heart for like, oh, I know I'm going to hurt them when I say this. But that piece of like through the obedience and through the changing of you, it is, we see you being strengthened by this whole entire thing. So that blesses me to see that, because I get it, sis. Mm-hmm.
Hallelujah. All praise to the King, because I'm gonna tell you this word has been ministering to me like, oh my gosh. I was like, wow, the enemy was attacking my peace because that was something I wasn't whole, I wasn't complete. And even though I wasn't saying something out of my mouth, like I said earlier, I would meditate, I would be worried about it. I didn't have rest. I didn't have my shalom. I didn't have Shabbat. I didn't have the Sabbath for it felt like a month, because ever since I gave that word of reproof, trying to pull up these errors, like everyone's coming at me, and I was just like, I'm not going to say anything, but inside I don't have peace. Like I can't, I'm in the midst of war, and I'm not trying to make war with nobody. I'm just trying to give peace. I'm just trying to give peace. And Yah just it was stretching me it was Yah revealing to me that you got some more fruit on this tree, your fruit of the spirit of long suffering. We're gonna have to work that out, because you getting too tired. You don't have no endurance. This was about to kill you, spiritually and emotionally, and we can't have that, Samaria. So I need you to see where you lack, and that's a blessing. So whenever Yah is strengthening us and he shows you where you're lacking, it's not to condemn you. Like you said, I think one of y'all said, when someone comes to correct you or rebuke you, or I'm talking about in the actual sense of like saying that, hey, you misstep, you did something wrong. Like we should want, like, community is so that we can heal. So if there's no one around you in your community who's walking with Yah, who's doing the things of Yah, who's actively trying, because again, none of us are perfect. We're all trying to practice perfection. But in the midst, like Latanya said, this is like a hospital. We're coming to a place together to get healed, but we each got something in us that's not healed. That's that mountain of love that's needed. So when someone does come to correct you, even if they don't do it in gentleness and love, can you say la and wait and hear what they're saying outside of the emotion and how they said it to you? Because you know that they're not perfect, just like you know you're not perfect. And they may be right about what they're saying about you, but in the midst of their emotions, it came out like, dang, that person was being kind of hateful to me. I didn't like how they said that. But like, remove how they said it and focus on what was said and reflect, did I do this? Am I operating like that? Did I have a slip up? Did I mess up? That's big girl panty work. Okay, it's not about you anymore. It's not about how they made you feel. What was said, is it true? Can we reflect on that? And most people, to be honest, out here in the world, they don't do that because they stop at offense. Oh, you feeling me? I want to hear nothing you got to say. And it's just like you're missing the salvation in the rebuke from someone trying to correct you, even though they were not perfect in their delivery. So, what Aisha say? She said, a whole next level maturity. Big girl panty work. Yes, my goodness. And for the men, they boxer briefs, whatever you want to call it. But this is a ladies' Bible study, so this is our saying. But yeah, y'all. Any prayer requests, prayer reports before we close out? All right, y'all. Let's posture ourselves for prayer. Does anybody want to close out in prayer tonight?
I'll pray. I posted the fruits of the spirit in our chat. It's love, joy, peace, long suffering, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Abba Yah, we thank you for all these fruits of the Ruach, Abba Yah. We ask that you help us to walk in those fruit every